Are you thinking of moving to the UK? Do you wonder what could be good about living in the UK? In this video, I'm going to be sharing 4 things that I feel are my top 4 reasons as to why I like living in the UK. Hi guys, my name is Sis in case you're new here, and I am a Ugandan living in the UK. I've lived here for about 5.5 years now, and in this video I'm going to be sharing the top 4 reasons as to why I really like living here. And I made a similar video to this before in the past, but recently I've been reflecting on what I really like about this place, and so I'm going to be sharing my top tips here. Well, not my top tips, I'm going to be sharing the top reasons, my topest. So the first point is quality health care that is free at the point of care. So unlike some countries like the US where maybe they might have quality health care, but it's really expensive for most people unless like you have maybe a really good insurance. That's not how it is here in the UK. In the UK, you can have quality health care regardless of who you are, as long as you go to an NHS hospital. So the NHS is the National Health Service, and I think it's amazing. I feel really bad that actually it might be like it's being ruined by the current political systems. So everyone is striking. Like recently, the doctors are striking, the nurses are striking, paramedics are striking. So people are leaving the system because like it's becoming unsustainable because of the way they're mismanaging it. So it's really sad. But on the other hand, I feel like for me who has benefited from it, I think it's a really good system and I wish it would just continue, and I hope that they figure it out. If you are an old subscriber, you will know that I had a baby recently, and if you're not, then I'll link my pregnancy update videos below. But basically, I had a really complicated pregnancy and also birth, and I feel like if I was somewhere like in Uganda, honestly, I could have died. I really could have died. For my operation, first of all, it was really complex and it was a cesarean hysterectomy, but the biggest risk was blood loss, which we knew about in advance. And can you imagine that by the time I went for the operation, we went in with I think it was 3 or 4 units of blood, like ready just in case. And from my experience of working in Uganda, I remember it was so hard to get blood, just blood, because I don't know like the way the system is, but getting blood when you needed it could be really difficult. And now imagine me here, even before I have lost the blood, I had blood in advance. So that alone could have finished me. They're not getting blood and not having to pay anyone, and like, you know, like it can be so hard to get blood. If you're in Uganda or somewhere else where it can be hard to get blood, let me know in the comments below, and you know what I mean. On top of that also, besides the blood points, during the pregnancy, I had to have so many scans. I had to have an MRI scan, and then I was admitted at some point for about, it was only 10 days, but the plan was for me to be admitted for 3 months. And at that time, I remember thinking, how am I going to, like if I was in Uganda and I needed to, first of all, be admitted for that time, first of all, your job, probably, there are very few jobs that would allow you to even have that time off. You might end up losing your job, but also the hospital bills. So when I had my baby as well, he had to go to the NICU and then a special care unit, and I didn't have to worry about hospital bills at all. Like I didn't pay anything. You just get out when it's time for leaving, they give you your medication and you go. This is really a big reason as to why I really like living in the UK, is the healthcare that's free at the point of care. So it's free at the point of care, but in terms of taxes, they tax a lot. And I remember before I got into all these like issues that I had with my pregnancy, I remember having a conversation with a friend who was another junior doctor, and he is white British, and he was complaining about how we pay too many taxes, it's not fair. Like he was saying that, like, because you pay for the tax and then you pay also national insurance, which I think is for the NHS. And he was saying that most healthy people, like most young people, are not going to require all the level of like, because the level of care that they're paying for, like you're paying like £1,000 at least, imagine, per month on like taxes and national insurance. And he was saying that we should make it that maybe those who need more should pay more. And I disagree with him, obviously, because you just never know. Like that's the point. If everyone pays way more than they actually need, when you need it, it's going to save your life. This is really my #1 top reason for loving living in the UK, is that I don't have to worry that at any one point I can end up having like in Uganda there's always someone fundraising for some, maybe traveling to India or somewhere else, like for like kidney transplants and things like that. And I know it has its issues, it's not perfect, like some of the things can be really annoying, but if you're really unwell, then you'll be fine. you'll be taken care of. The problem is if you're not yet and you're just in between. Sometimes it can be really annoying, like the wait times, but really in the end, really I think it's really a good system, and this alone is good enough as a reason for me to move to the UK. My second reason for loving living in the UK is maternity leave. So I'm currently on maternity leave, and it's been now about 4 months, and if I was in Uganda by now I would have to have gone back to work already, because maternity leave in the last job that I worked was 3 months, and the job I worked before that in Uganda was 2 months if you've had a vaginal birth and 3 months if you've had a C-section, which is a weird thing because it's not about the mode of delivery, it's about the time you need to have with your baby. So anyway, I'm now 4 months into my maternity leave, and I still have about 4 months left, and that's because, well, first of all, the maternity leave in the UK is up to 1 year, so 52 weeks. You're entitled to 52 weeks off, regardless of which job you're working. Wherever you are, it's like a national thing. However, the pay gradually declines depending on how long you've worked for your employer. I've made a full video explaining this that I'll link up here, but basically for the NHS pay, it's going to be maximum only up to about 6 months. So it's like you get like your entire salary for about the first 2 months, and it gradually reduces, and then by the 6-month point, for me and for most people, it's not really worth it. Then that's when most people end up, not most people, that's when some people end up going back to work. So for me, at the 6-month point, then I will begin my annual leave, because I have annual leave that I hadn't used up from before. And then also, while you're on maternity leave, you end up accruing annual leave. So I'm going to use that as well to top up my extra months, and then that's how I'll end up making around, I think, 8 months off. I think this is really a really good thing, because by the time you go back to work, then at least you go back when your baby is able to like eat solids and they're not entirely on breast milk only. So you've finished that exclusive breastfeeding period. That's if you're exclusively breastfeeding. And even if you're not, it's still good to go when your baby is at least like they're mobile, they're maybe crawling, like they have maybe more of a routine, so it's easier to leave them with someone. And I think one of the reasons that the maternity leave is so long here is obviously because of another corner of the system or the society, is that there is less of like childcare. It's a bit more difficult in that most people, you end up looking after your kids yourself, so you don't have a lot of help. So that's why when you have your baby, you have to be at home, or they allow you to be at home for at least a year. I am really enjoying my maternity leave. This is my 3rd baby, but it's only my 2nd maternity leave, because after my first I was a student, so I didn't have maternity leave, and so I only took off time. It was just a coincidence for me that I gave birth in my holiday, so I had 1 month off anyway, and then I went back to school. And yeah, it's so much better now when I know like I have this time to just be here and do whatever I want. It's also really long and can be really boring. I'll make another video on ways to enjoy your maternity leave, because it can be so boring. Because imagine every day you wake up and you don't have much to do, you're just there. It gets a bit boring, so it's good to try and fill your day with other activities. So for me, it's like maybe filming videos and other things that I'll talk about in my other video that I'll make on this topic. The next point is raising your own children. So when you live in the UK, you end up raising your own children. So it's related to the point of childcare, because childcare is so expensive. You end up having to raise your own kids, which is a pro and a con. But for me, it's mostly a pro. For me, it's really a pro. It's like an unexpected side effect, because if I was in Uganda, I am sure both me and my husband would have to go to work and out of the home, and then we'd have like a maid to look after the kids, and then there's all this maid drama I'm always hearing about. So I cannot relate, because I've never had a maid. So for me, by the time I moved here, I'd just gotten married, like maybe a month. It was less than a month actually. I'd got married, then after a few weeks I moved to the UK, and then my husband came and joined me a few weeks later as well. So we have lived here all our like married life, so we've never had a maid, and we've never had anyone like, we've never had like a nanny or anything like that. So we have raised our kids ourselves, and I think it's amazing, especially for them and also for us, because you get to really know your child. My husband actually works as a stay-at-home dad, so he does his own like working from home things, but mostly is looking after the kids when I'm off at work. And then right now in my maternity leave, we are both at home, so we work together our own like other things that we are doing with our life is being done at home, and then we raise our kids ourselves, and I think it's amazing. And I feel like sometimes we even struggle, like a few times we've gone to Uganda, we struggle leaving our kids with other people, because we are so used to being with them, especially my husband. He's so used to having the kids, like he kind of gets like a bit like worried what's going to happen, and also he's a bit of a catastrophizer, so you can think like, maybe maids, and you know how all these videos you see of maids, kids, so you can't be overly worried about that. But for me, usually I do enjoy the time off when I have when I visit Uganda, or when my parents come to visit, or sometimes once in a while you have someone help you. But for the most part, it is us raising our kids, and it can be quite tough, especially I think in the early years. But now we're done with all our kids, so we know that there's a time limit to all this. It's not going to be like this forever. Eventually they'll grow up, they won't need us as much. But in the meantime, it's really good to be involved entirely. Like, you pick up your kids, you're the one who bathes your kids, you take them to school, you come back home, you do their homework with them. I think it's a really beautiful experience that I am privileged to be a part of, because I know also it's a privilege, because if I was in Uganda, I would have no choice. Like, you can't have, like, it's unheard of to hear of dads staying home looking after kids, or even just moms. It's also not as common, although it happens. Like, at the end of the day, sometimes like the culture is that, like, the hustle culture, I think, is that you have to work, everyone has to work, you have no choice. So I'm really privileged to be living in the UK, where I've been afforded that opportunity to be here and really be as much involved in my kids' life as possible. And my last top reason for loving is living in the UK is the liberal society, or the liberal culture. So one of the things, for instance, I mentioned is about how my husband stays at home and looks after the kids if I have to go to work. And it's like there's a lot of things that are not acceptable, or that are not as common back home, that are very common here. I can start with maybe just that alone, which I think is really great for us and for our family. It works for us. A lot of people do that. There's a lot of stay-at-home dads. And then also tiny things like, for instance, my hair. So I'm starting to grow my hair out, and so I've done this hairstyle which, if I was in Uganda, it's so funny that it's not actually very common to see people having maybe such hair. Maybe like this hairstyle I've done, which is just my twists, and I could actually lock it. I could do anything that I wanted to do with my hair and not have any societal pressures that just because I'm a doctor, now I have to be a certain way. There's none of that. Like, it's a little bit there, but not as much as it is in Uganda. Also, things like, I'm a YouTuber now, like, you can do anything. So there's that feeling of really be who you are, be who you want to be. Like, no one really cares, no one is going into, I guess, into your personal life, or no one really cares what you want to do. So you can be who you really want to be in the UK, and I think I find that a really good thing. Let me know in the comments below, is there certain things that you find that in the UK you do, but if you were back home it would be really difficult for you to do, or it's like considered very strange? Let me know in the comments below. So that's it, guys. It's not entirely all roses and like flowers, and it's not all good in the UK. There's some negative things, and I'll make another video for that, so make sure you subscribe so you don't forget that. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and see you in my next one, guys. Bye.